Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 31. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. And before I forget, yes, I have moved house. Yes, I have lost my microphone in one of these boxes. Hopefully this sounds okay. And the lighting is terrible and it smells of cat wee in here. So do bear with me. As ever, let's crack on. First one is AI tandem drifting. This is from the good folk at Toyota Research and Stanford. This is two cars, Supras, if you're into cars, doing dual drifting. There is a human in each one of these, but they're not actually touching anything. It's the algorithm doing it. Apparently, Toyota did the algorithm in the front car and Stanford did the one in the rear car. They are doing this really cool dance and it's basically losing traction doing drifting. Now, this might look like it's just a bit of fun, but it's really about car safety. So you might have anti-lock braking on your car and this is the next level. So if you lose your car in a skid on ice or on water or on a soft surface, then in the future, your car is probably going to be able to control it, because if it can control it like this, it can probably control it to a nice safe stop with your family inside. That's the kind of cool thing. And I dare say on Supras, especially Supras, in the future, if there's a drift mode, then you might see these going around your local Tesco's car park at 3 in the morning. So there you go. Kind of approve on both fronts, to be fair, unless you live next to the car park. This is the Better Phone project and is a laudable and lofty aim. This is from HMD, Human Made Devices, otherwise known as Nokia in the olden days. Who knew? So this project is really just a press release at the moment, and many people, many companies, many institutions have tried to do this. And in this case, so have HMD. So the reason I'm reporting on this is because it is Nokia. And if they're going to do it, then they probably will do it. So the point of this one is it's all about mental health and the effect phones have on the youth, young people, and quite frankly, anybody as well. We're all too aware of it. If you read the press release, they've got a huge amount of stats about it as well. So just reporting on that, this might be a thing. It might actually happen at last, and we might see that actually take off. So go and read the press release. It's quite interesting. Bacterial motors or flagellum motors. So if you know about, or flagellum motors, flagella, whatever. If you don't know how bacteria move, this is fascinating, but the whole video is just mind-blowing, just gets weirder and weirder. So this is from Smarter Every Day. Put this video together, brilliant YouTuber. Go and please subscribe to it. You'll thank me later if you haven't already. But this little motor is what sits in a bacteria's bum, quite frankly, and these little hairs rotate, and as they rotate, they can then propel the bacteria along, and that's how it moves. This is the actual motor. So for the first time, they've managed to model it in such detail that you can actually 3D print it if you really wanted to. You can download it if you have a 3D printer. But they explain how they sort of scan it. They use a microscope to then look at all the parts. And as you're seeing, those little brown things are really the kind of the gears that actually drive it. You can actually make it rotate backwards by reversing the polarity really, and some of the proteins spin around. But if you want a little bit more torque, you want a bit more power, essentially, you add more of those little brown nuggety things, and it does that for you. So I find that absolutely fascinating that this thing, which is pretty much what an electric motor looks like right now, has been in bacteria for bazillion years. Absolutely amazing video. Go and watch it. It will blow your mind knowing those things are inside you. AI model collapse is something I've been talking about for a while because it's been a thing for a while, but I think the press picked up on it a couple of weeks ago, mainly because probably this report. So this report was a bunch of scientists, or should explain what model collapse is first. If you have an AI that's trained on human data, i.e. humans did human stuff and an AI is trained on it to create stuff that sounds like humans, that stuff is going out into the world and nobody's tagging it as computer generated. Therefore, when the next AI comes along, it hoovers up what it thinks is human stuff and it then trains its model, but it's actually training it on very subtly weird stuff that it created before, but it doesn't know that. Eventually, imagine an engine trying to run on the exhaust gas that it has produced. It will start to stumble and it will start to stall. That is model collapse. So a bunch of scientists thought, let's actually create this and see what actually happens. So they trained their own language model on virgin human data, started to generate results, started to generate enough information to create enough what looked like human data, and they fed that into model number 2, generation number 3, generation number 4, and they got to generation number 9, and it literally just came out with gobbledygook. So the results were blue at hyphen at tailed jackrabbits, and all it did is it just changed the color each time. time. So everything you asked it, it just came up with absolute gibberish. So this might sound like an extreme example, but very subtly, this is probably happening right now. So if you're thinking possibly AI is going to just get better and better and better, this is the counter argument to that, that at the moment we're not quite sure how to defend ourselves against bad data on the input. So have a look out for that. If you haven't seen any reports of model collapse or you've never even heard about it, well, now you do. Straight off the back of that one is SearchGPT has been announced. So it's in beta at the moment, so you can sign up for it, but you can't actually get your hands on it just yet. I've signed up. I'll let you know if I do get a play. However, this is what Perplexity is kind of doing and also what Google are doing. So this is search using AI. So you just ask of it in human language rather than the sort of slightly clunky stuff. At the moment, Google will say, here's the stuff. Whereas at the moment now, it will actually use language and go, I've already read the stuff and here's what I think you need to know. And I put it in the right format. Again, it's what Perplexity are doing, but they've got a bit of a bad rap because they've been sort of ignoring the rules of the internet and training their model on all sorts of stuff, even if it's legal and even if it's copyrighted, allegedly. My lawyers will probably tell me to say. However, we're not quite sure what SearchGPT are going to be doing, but it's going to stop you having to go somewhere else to do your searching. So it's kind of convenient at the moment. It will also give you all of the references that it used to find the facts, so you can go and actually research them yourself. So not quite sure where all this is going. Read previous thing about model collapse, we don't really know, but there is a new search engine in town coming up soon. Based on that as well, actually there's quite a lot of linking going on in this week's episode. Google announced that they are not going to depreciate cookies after all. They announced this a couple of years ago, 4 years ago or so, and they said, we're going to get rid of cookies. We realise they're sort of evil and nobody likes them, so we're going to get rid of them. So we've got some plans. And their first plan was federating learning of cohorts or flock, which basically said that instead of letting cookies track you, we'll let a machine figure out what you're into. So if you start looking at certain topics, what it will then say is, hey, we'll stick you in a big bucket of other people who like looking at shoes. And in which case it'll just go, right, you're in cohort number 1354 because you like shoes. And everybody who else is looking at shoes will be in that cohort as well. And it will do that in a sort of fractional way. You might be into 6 or 7 cohorts, and that's what the advertisers will serve against. Then it went into Google Topics, because Flock didn't really work and everybody was pushing against it. Then it went to Google Topics, which is, again, pretty similar, but it also basically said, look, you know, this is the topic I'm interested in. It will send that to the advertiser. The advertiser will then figure out what ads it needs to see. Again, they're trying to figure out how that works. It's evolving. But what we were supposed to see is cookies turned off, and one of these things would actually take its place. Now, what Google have said is, actually, do you know what, cookies, we're not going to get rid of them after all. We're going to do one of these other things in cohort with cookies. So you're probably going to see topics and cookies working together, all within this great plan called the Privacy Sandbox, which has lots of things. And as a developer, you can do lots of cool things with the API. But as far as you and I are concerned, cookies ain't going away. And the battle is still on between the people like Apple, who turn them off, and Google, who want them to be turned on. But there you go. Interesting kind of. However, finally, we have the cigarette sucking bot. It's a butt bot, basically. Now, this is from the Institute, or Italian Institute of Technology, and they're my go-to people for slightly bonkers things at the moment. And this is a bonkers thing. It's one of those killer robots with a vacuum cleaner on it with 4 suction hoses. So well done for whoever thought this was needed. And it's sucking up cigarette butts. Now, why? Because apparently, according to their research, there are 4.5 trillion cigarette butts discarded each year. Now, I did the maths on that, and for every person alive on the planet, that's 566 cigarette butts. So I'm not super sure about that. However, seems to be a massive problem, maybe in Italy. So there you go. If you can't find a person possibly to do this, or you've got a tricky space and you want computer vision to do it for you, like a beach, then this is going to do it for you. It's also going to suck up a heck of a lot of stones. There you go. If you do want one of these for your local playground / beach / tight alleyway, then you know who to go to. The Vero, the vacuum cleaner equipped robot. And that, by the way, is called a backronym, not an acronym. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully it was interesting. If it was, give it a like. If you're not subscribed yet, you know what to do. And hopefully I'll see you next week. Hopefully I'll have found the microphone, and hopefully I'll have sorted out the lighting and cleaned the carpet. See you next week.